Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I hope you are all well. This week's Parsha is Shelach, and Shelach is a really easy one to remember because Shelach means to send. So like Holech, Holechet, like all these words about going, sending, it has to do with moving. They're all connected. So Shelach, God commands Moshe to send 12 spies into the land of Israel. So if we remember, about a year has passed since the Jews were freed from Egypt. So they've kind of been just hanging out in the desert, and it's about to be time for them to actually go to start living in Israel. So before they go in, of course, as any normal person would want to see, they've been promised this land, but the Jewish people don't necessarily know that it's a great land to go into. And so it seems like someone's phone might be ringing. The Jewish people don't know if the land of Israel is necessarily a good place to be. So of course, before anyone even asks, Moshe sends 12 people out to survey the land of Israel. So 12 people are sent, one person from each of the tribes. So it's like the princes of the tribes, the people who are really important in the tribes go. And included in those people, we have Hoshea, who becomes Yehoshua, and Caleb. And they're important to remember. So Moshe specifically sends these 12 tribes to go from the bottom of the land of Israel up to the top, because the bottom of the land of Israel is the Negev. It's hot. There's not really much there, versus the north is so beautiful and green, and there's so much verdure in the north of Israel. And so Moshe specifically sends them to the not so great part first, knowing that they're already going to be kind of hesitant about the land of Israel. So they'll be so impressed when they see, oh, this is a hot, horrible land. Oh, look, the land is actually really beautiful. So Moshe sends them specifically that way. So they enter the land of Israel, and they see that there's this huge fruit everywhere, that there's this like giant grapes and giant pomegranates and all these things like so heavy that they need multiple men to carry them. They see that, then they see really large people. And they see that everyone, every town they pass, all of them are in mourning. They're all burying their people in their town. So they see this, and when they're sent in by Moshe, Moshe says, look to see if there are many people, if there are few people. Look to see if the cities are fortified or if they're not fortified. And the commentary tells us that if a city is fortified, has high walls, that means that the people are weak. Versus if a city is wide open, it doesn't have walls, the people are strong because they don't need the walls to be protecting them. So it's kind of a non-intuitive way of looking at things. Okay, so the Jewish people go in. 10 of the 12 spies are going in with bad attitudes to begin with, and they take fruit already to bring back to the Jewish people to show them how crazy and wild this place is. We don't want to go to the land of Israel. The land is the fruit is huge, which means that the people are huge, and it's strange, and we don't like it. The land of Israel is a place of miracles, and it's makes them uncomfortable. They're used to their mundane, easy life out in the desert. They don't want this crazy world, this crazy life that is in the land of Israel. So they come back, and the 10 spies who aren't really for moving in start with, well, you said it was a land flowing with milk and honey, and it was, but the cities are huge and fortified, which means the people are strong, which isn't the case. The people are huge. They're the sons of giants. And every place we went, this is a land that eats its people. Everywhere we went, there were people mourning, people burying each other, people burying the people in their town. So they've misunderstood all of these things. As we said earlier, the spies who are coming in not wanting to look at the land of Israel positively, say that the cities are fortified, which means the people are strong. No, we know that when a city is fortified, it means the people are actually weak. So that's not a really great example, but they give it to the people anyway, even if they know it's not true. They say that the people, it's a city, it's a country that eats its people. Everyone's mourning. According to our commentary, back in the day, you would only do a funeral every few weeks because it was too hard to bury everyone at once. So it was ordained by God that everyone should have to do all of their mourning and burial during the time that the spies were there, so they wouldn't be suspicious of the spies coming in, because it is kind of suspicious to have this group of 12 people suddenly appear. But apparently God was helping us out and distracted the people of Israel who were currently living there, and turn them away for their own things that they were looking at. And then a very really like a moving section is when the spies who again are against living in the land of Israel say that there we saw giants. In our eyes, we seemed like grasshoppers, and so we were in their eyes. In our eyes, we thought we were like grasshoppers, and so we were in their eyes, which is a classic example of projecting. They had their own insecurities about how they felt. They felt nervous in this new land, this unfamiliar land, this huge fruit, the city there, everyone's mourning, that they projected that everyone else in the whole country thinks that they're grasshoppers, when in fact, they aren't necessarily. The people maybe didn't even think anything of them. But because they saw themselves, the 10 of the spies who did not really have so much faith in Moshe and his leadership and God setting them to the land of Israel, those ones decided, they projected their anxiety and insecurity on the people who are living in Israel. And this is, again, one of those lines in the Torah that's like, so you don't even need to see commentary to understand what it's saying. It's saying, if you project, if you don't feel good on the inside and you decide that other people are thinking the same thing of you, it's going to ruin your life. And so these 10 people totally develop this unrest with all the people. They come back and they say, this is a crazy land. We were grasshoppers. There's crazy fruit. We don't want to be here. And of course, Caleb and Yehoshua, Caleb and Joshua are still saying, you know what? It was an amazing land. Did Moshe not split the sea for us? Did he not bring manna down from the skies? Did all these things not happen? How are you guys forgetting all this so soon? But it's not enough. It's only two of them were being righteous, and the rest of the 10 spies were not. So we have, again, if we're reminded, these are the highest, most important people in each of the tribes that are being sent out. So of course people are going to listen to them. So there's all this unrest. Everyone's saying we should just go back to Egypt. Why are we about to go into this crazy land? And God gets very angry. God wants to destroy all of the Jewish people, and Moshe convinces him not to. And in the end, what's decided is that the Jewish people, all of the generations that have existed, that are existing right now, will die out before they get to enter the land of Israel. We are then sent to our 40 years of wandering in the desert. The spies were sent for 40 days into the land of Israel. And so for each day that they were going into Israel, not having a good attitude, not believing that God would be able to protect them, we got a year in the desert. So it's funny, we talk about wandering in the desert. And I feel like I've made this joke before. Like, I always thought, okay, I guess they just like took the wrong route, a roundabout way, I don't know. But they actually were supposed to spend 40 years in the desert. Originally, they were not, of course. They were supposed to only spend like a year or two, or what, like the amount of time that it takes to get from Egypt to Israel is not that long, as we know, like geographically today. But because of this sin, hate tamaraglim, the sin of the spies, just not having belief and not having faith in God, not believing that Moshe and God would send them into a good situation, we are destined to these 40 years in the desert. And yeah, that's the reason that we have the 40 years in the desert. So the spies, this whole thing is resolved by, again, everyone being told we have now 40 years in the desert. Every single person had a negative feeling about the land of Israel, won't even get to see it. And so then we go on. We get a few more mitzvot. We get the mitzvah of tzitzit, like on the taluses and on the things you wear under your shirts, and a few other mitzvot. But the main point of this parsha is chet hamaraglim, the sin of the spies. And it's the one that we kind of pass over because it's usually in the summer. So people aren't necessarily attending shul so regularly, at least kids, or maybe you're at summer camp. So it's like a really awesome story. And it's the beginning of more narrative in the Torah, because again, we're in the book of Numbers, the 4th of the 5th books. And we're getting back into narrative, and it's really great because all these people that were being introduced are going to be in the next parshiot of the Torah. And also, if we remember, Yehoshua is the person who takes over after Moshe, and this is one of his first examples of really showing what he's made of, how he defended God and Moshe in the face of all the other spies not doing so. So that is this week's parsha. Anyone have any questions? Right, thank you.
How long do you think the journey was for Caleb and Joshua and the other 10 guys? How long do you think that took the way it's setting? I mean, just
so apparently it's supposed to take 40 days, but it definitely couldn't. That's way too short to walk the entire land of Israel and maybe stop. And so it said that each of the days was actually a full year. The commentary that it actually was much longer. But yeah, yes.
What did you just tell me again? What you said about the how people feel, and what were you saying about how people feel and how you feel?
Yeah. So the spies who were against going into the land of Israel say this line. They say, "There we saw giants. In our eyes, we seemed like grasshoppers, and so we were in their eyes."
So, but how did you expand on that? You said that people, when we see each other, see ourselves that way, and they see ourselves that way.
Exactly. Like when we, first of all, we project our own feelings of how we see ourselves onto other people.
Right.
And sometimes they're not even thinking those things about us. but we poison our own minds by projecting our own
Right.
insecurity. So it's just like,
Right.
but like literally just reading that line, like in our eyes, we felt like we were grasshoppers and so we were in theirs. Like that's like, what's a self-fulfilling prophecy, making your own
Yes.
bed, just like,
Yes.
it's like like, it's just like,
Yeah.
again, no commentary needed to totally like,
Right. I think that's
crazy.
I think that's very profound. And I think that
yeah,
it's something we can, I mean, I know, I'm not going to talk about other people. I'm going to say that is something
no, I
that
completely connect to it as well.
yeah.
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 And it's so true. It's also like the entire message of the movie I Feel Pretty with Amy Schumer. It's how we feel on the inside, not
Yeah.
how we appear on the outside.
Yeah. There's another movie that I just saw called The Summer I Was Pretty, that I thought I was pretty or something. It was
The Summer I Turned Pretty. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So
I've heard good things.
yeah. Thanks, Shira.
Any more questions? I will stop the recording. Great.